Well, welcome to Carving a New Path. My name is Andrea Hylen, and I am the host of the show. And just to give you a few lines about how this all came about, the podcast began in 2020 in response to all the change that people were experiencing. And I decided to invite guests on to have conversations about times where they listened to their inner voice, and out of that listening, birthed new ways of being in the world. And it might have come from a dramatic ending, or it might have been a spark to start something new. So today's show, episode 24, is a conversation with Sofia Wren and her journey as a writer and a teacher. And I'm so happy that you're here, Sofia, to have this conversation. So welcome.
So excited. Thank you.
And before we begin our conversation, I just want to share a few things about Sofia from an official bio. Sofia Wren helps sensitive people write for a book or business so that they can serve a wider audience. Sofia has pursued a passion for publishing online and in books for over 20 years. And for 10 years, she's run her own business, learning how to sell and connect with writing. She now focuses on entrepreneurs and writers ready to hone their writing, reach the people they are here to serve, and feel the love. And she is the creator of 21-Day Heartfelt Writing Challenge, which begins on December 18th, the next one. I've participated in a number of them, but I know this next one I've already signed up, and I'm excited to see what comes from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks for joining.
yeah. And reading your bio, I also just find myself reflecting on how we met in 2012 at an On Purpose Woman's networking. They were called networking at that time. Now it's a global community where people can, what is networking but connecting with people?
Yeah.
But I just remember we went out to lunch afterwards with a group of people. And I remember from that meeting, your passion for writing, your passion for using your voice and finding ways to bring it out into the world and helping others, And so, wow, it's been an amazing, how many years is that? 10, 11 years of knowing you and each of us watching each other evolve, right?
Yeah. It's been a wonderful connection. I'm really glad that we got to meet. It's been so wonderful.
Yeah.
Always
wonderful to meet a fellow writer and someone who writes from their heart. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that and how you bring that to your work.
Oh, thank you. It's mutual.
Well, all right, let's jump into the conversation. And I want to start by asking you, how did you start writing?
Yeah, it's interesting because I first put pen to paper kind of recreationally outside of school when I was pretty young, like 8 or 10 or 12. And it was when I was about that age that I started my first blog, because I had that. I'm 36 now, so that was like right at the end of the 90s, and we could have blogs then. And it wasn't something I really was doing every day or anything. It was just sort of when I felt like it, and it was just for a few friends that knew about it. But it was a really powerful outlet for me to express some feelings that I couldn't get into about stuff going on in my home. I was being kind of bullied by my dad's second wife, who is long gone now, but I couldn't be expressing myself safely at home. And obviously that has an effect on any kid, but it wasn't something I really took seriously until after college, when I was really kind of reevaluating my life, and now I could see it wasn't just that I had this one person that was the source of all my problems. I was starting to see patterns. I was starting to see that repeatedly there would be people in my life who were pushing me around. And I started to wonder, where am I in this pattern? Am I creating this pattern? Am I doing something wrong by being a doormat or not having boundaries? Or like, what's the deal? How do we stop this? I don't want to do this anymore. Especially when my boss stole from me. I had a boss that stole several $100s from me. And it was just like, never in my mind would I have imagined that bosses steal from their employees. I was just like, what? Like, what do you, and it was supposedly a very successful person. It made no sense to me. I had not expected it. But in my gut, I had kind of felt something was wrong early on and not trusted it. And that's where I was like, there's something that I need to look at inside of myself that I think could change a lot of this stuff. And so, and I was also wondering about my future because I had just graduated college. I was pretty young at the time, like 22. And so I started to read Julia Cameron's Artist's Way, and she has you write morning pages every day, 3 pages a day. And I started getting really serious about it, and I would do it every day. And when I started, I had a lot of free time, but very quickly I started my first job where I was working 60 hours a week through AmeriCorps in Philadelphia, and in the schools with kids in a K-8. And it was really stressful. And of course that dropped off. I didn't have a lot of time, but I kind of started to I still enjoyed writing. You know, it was still something that I had enjoyed. It gave me a really good feeling. So when I could, I would fit it in. And then I noticed that those days that I started writing at lunch or even woke up 20 minutes earlier to be at 5:20 a.m. for me, and I'm not a morning person, I would literally wake up 20 minutes earlier when it was dark out to write, just because I noticed how much better I felt during the day. My mental health was better. And really every single part of my life was positively affected by that, because it gave me a lot more intentionality and clarity and groundedness to deal with the challenges of my job, to deal with the questions about my future, to navigate relationships, which again, I was coming into with a lot of trauma and bad modeling. So they were kind of in a weird place, and I needed to get out of those old patterns. And also just feeling more confident about myself and exploring other desires and creative avenues. Started drawing and making music and going to open mics and doing all kinds of stuff for myself, even though I worked 60 hours a week and I literally only had like 3 hours a day that was for me to eat and rest and have fun and then go to sleep. So I managed to do a lot in the really short amount of time I had because of the writing. And so I just knew how much it benefited me. I immediately wanted to teach others. I think I started to propose a class when I worked at that job in the schools, but the vice principal said I could totally start a writing group if I was going to teach the 5-point essay to these K-8 graders. And I just thought, yeah, they're going to hate writing if I do that. So I'm not going to do that. Who wants to stay home, stay after school and do unneeded homework? I wanted to teach them what I teach now, which is more of a heartfelt writing, ways to connect to yourself, ways to connect to others, ways to sort things out and process things and find yourself, find a better way to be yourself, find a better life. So I think that that's really what people want to be reading these days. We love to hear personal stories. We love to hear about people's life experience. It just hits us differently than how-to information. And there's plenty of how-to information out there. It has its purpose, but I really enjoy the benefits that I've gotten from writing about my life and sharing it and feeling the love of the people that have been there for me in receiving my words, and also connecting with people for my business that I can help. I did all kinds of different things when I started a business 10 years ago. Writing kind of led me to that clarity that that's what I was going to do in the future, is I was going to start my own business to help people. And then I didn't have any middleman saying you can only teach writing this or that way, or you can only do this or that thing. I could make those decisions myself. It was really important to me. And yeah, it's been a journey. I've done a lot of different things, healing practices. I used to sell massage and tarot readings and all these other kind of intuitive healing type of things, different kinds of like life coaching things, before I really found the confidence in myself to just kind of claim, I teach writing, I'm a writer. and I worked on different marketing teams, doing writing for that, editing books, ghostwriting, things like that. Before it really took me a long time to own that I'm a writer, but I really feel passionately about like we can all be writers. It's not an exclusive club. And just even if you only do it for yourself, it's just really beneficial. Yeah.
Well,
So that's
there,
my long answer.
there are so many incredible points in here. I'm like looking at where I was taking notes to just come back and ask you a few more questions to go into it, because I feel like you're, first of all, a new beginning is, there was a point where you weren't writing, and then you got the spark, the idea to write and try that out. First question I wanted to ask you is, I mean, because, there's a age difference between us of, I don't know, 30 years, maybe, that you came into a time in the world where there were things that were available to put your writing out into the world. And I'm wondering what that was like when you, for even to a small group of people, but what that was like to put it out so publicly. And
Mm-hmm.
we weren't even thinking that it could get into Google searches or whatever, that other people could
True.
find it and see it or whatever. But even
Yeah.
sharing with a few people, I wonder if you'd talk about that. And also even the idea of sharing our writing with others, which you have a lot of
Mhm.
experience with working with people around that.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely in the beginning was a bumpy path, like speaking of like not being aware of Google and things like that. Like I was really interested in poetry when I was a teenager, and I think I submitted a poem to like an online daily digest of poems, like you could have I think you could win a prize. But they published, a poem of mine, and I think I found it when I was like 15, and I was just like, oh my God, no, I didn't realize this was going to be on Google, and he searched my name.
Mhm.
And, I couldn't wait for that to get buried in the search results after some time had passed and I no longer liked it. Also, when I was in middle school, I played around with my friends and I was writing a little bit of fan fiction about Pokemon. And my friend, as she's so amazing, I love her, but she went online and she put my story up on the internet.
Mhm.
And she
Mhm.
attached my name to it, so it came up in search results. And I was like, no, why did you do that? It's in my search results. So it was very embarrassing, being a teenager and realizing how your words could haunt you, and like you could regret what you put out. So I learned that very easily, very early, and it gave me a caution, that and the fact that if someone found in my family found my blog, I knew I was going to be censored or something bad was going to happen. I had no, I had that sense. So I really cared a lot about my privacy. I only started to share things privately with my friends, and hopefully they didn't republish them. And yeah, for the most part that went great. But then it was interesting because I think after the school years, like after you graduate high school and stuff like that, everyone kind of goes their own direction. So I didn't realize the value I had in having this sort of audience that was kind of always ready to read whatever I wrote, because I was writing about personal things I would only tell my friends, so they were all into reading it.
Sure.
But I didn't realize that that's actually not something everyone has, that having people to read. Like later I started a blog in college, and I just kind of got the sense of like, no one's reading this, and it wasn't as fun. And so it's kind of a tug and a pull. Like at the same time, I want to connect and be read, but on the other side of it, what if something bad happens? What if I regret this? What if someone doesn't like me, or whatever. So it was very complicated from the beginning. And when I started getting serious about writing every day, that was kind of the first time I really put a lot of energy into just writing for me. And that's a really big deal because yeah, I think that it was not even something I was really aware of at the time. But I think especially being younger, you're very social, and you care a lot about your friends and your peers, and you're trying to connect to feel safe. But but this was the first time I was kind of finding safety in this relationship with myself. And that's been an ongoing relationship. It's been an ongoing process. I don't think it really ends until you end, that you stop having a relationship with yourself or even wanting to have a better one. But that was really important to me. And I think that because of the nature of how I was writing these morning pages where you're just sort of stream of consciousness, dumping whatever's in your brain, just writing to fill pages. I never saw them as something that was finished enough to share, but it did draw me to just sort of uncork my creativity. And then I was writing short stories and other things that I would share eventually. But it took me some years to really feel like I could be public again with my writing. And, you know, and even when I did start to share a lot more online, at first I had like another name that I had my writing hidden under, like a pen name, which is totally fine if people want to do that. But I had this sense that that there was something secretive about it, that I wasn't being my full self, that I didn't feel a sense of like safety that I wanted to have. So I ended up kind of combining my pen name with my real name. And that's how I became Sofia Wren, which is the name I go by now. And I even recently tacked my last name on the end. So I'm Sofia Wren Nietzsche. So, you know, I was my dad's daughter he passed away 2 years ago. But Sofia Wren is my public persona, and it is me, and it is my writing, and it is available on Google. You can find me anywhere. It is not a secret. And that was a humongous change. And it wasn't something I did right away. And I always tell people that you don't have to put everything out there right away, because it almost feels like today, like the private spaces are like taboo and like looked down on, that you're not publicly sharing everything. Like, it's like, oh, well, then you must not think well of yourself, or your work must not be any good. It's like one of those two things, or you're not motivated and you're not goal oriented and you're not successful. I don't know. There's something like lesser about you and your writing process if you're not sharing everything now, to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's almost like a judgment, and that is just BS. So many famous writers, so many famous thinkers and amazing geniuses have a private space to go through their process in their own private space. And it's almost like I really feel like it's like a necessity for any woman to kind of claim that right to have that privacy, because, you know, especially for people who had siblings or family members who might have invaded their journal or their private space, that there's almost like a trauma around that they can't have that. But it's such a shame, because I really don't think that I would have grown as much if I hadn't had that. And I feel kind of bad for the younger generations I see now, who even more are tapped into social media and the network between everybody, because it's like they're not being modeled, that they're not seeing that it's good to have a private space. There's good to have a division between your personal world and the public world. And I know maybe in an ideal society, we wouldn't need such a thing, but it's not really even about need, because it's about the process of powerful communication and what that takes. And we have all these things, again, these judgments about being authentic is important, that we need to be transparent and we need to be sharing every part of our life to be authentic or to be vulnerable. And these are prized qualities. And you might even get positive things out of that, from likes and comments and reactions from people, to get an emotional response from people. And I'm definitely somebody who's put a lot of my personal stuff out there. So there's nothing wrong with that. But as I've gotten older, I've come to really value my privacy and to understand that every storyteller omits details. Every storyteller holds some things back, not in a mean way or a weird way or a creepy way or a secretive way, but to direct your attention and focus to the beginning, middle, end of the story. And the storyteller decides, this is the beginning that's important. Out of everywhere I could start the story, I want to start it here. Out of every detail I could include, I'm going to include like 1, 2, 3. And out of every way I can end the story, I'm going to end it here. And these are deliberate decisions that can take a lot of time. that you don't see. And that's the kind of thing that somebody might figure out in private if they're sharing their life story or another, or writing fiction even, that it takes some time to kind of almost like what are those little Rubik's cubes, to kind of remove the Rubik's cube around. Like, how do I want to tell this story? How do I want to display this to other people? So that way, when I come out of my private space, I've got my storyteller cape and I am ready to weave some magic with my story and do this big reveal of the thing I'm really trying to communicate. And in today's noise, you really can't be understated how powerful, like, just make your point. It's really important because and I know I'm like going on and on, but right now it's the economy that we're really working with as writers and as communicators or as entrepreneurs. The economy, it's not just about a financial economy, it's an intention economy. It's about all of the other things, the distractions, the things vying for your attention to watch or read or listen to, or, you know, and it's like not just quantity, but it's also about the velocity of things coming at you, where you might think, oh, I'm going to go share some news about something going on in my business, and you go online to do that, and now suddenly you're taken on another journey to answer everyone else's messages and see what everyone else is doing, and now you're going down this rabbit hole and you've just lost your attention has been pulled in all these directions. And so when people think they have to be online in this public sphere, they don't realize, they might think, oh, this is a free service, I'm using a free app to share about my things, but there is a cost to it, because you're losing all of this bandwidth, and you're also letting, instead of being the powerful storyteller making the decisions about what is important in your stories, you're now allowing other people to make that decision for you. You're now influenced to appease them, and also, you know, wherever in whatever sphere you're sharing. So it's really important, especially for women and people who are of color and of marginalized communities, to have a private space so that you can make an empowered choice about what is important to you, and how is that going to play into everything in your life, and as well as all the things that you communicate.
Yeah, I love that whole exploration and you sharing all the threads of that, because part of it is be authentic with what you share. It does not say share everything in order to be authentic. No,
Exactly.
be authentic with what you share.
Yeah. And if you feel like a pressure to share everything, it's like, well, that's like, being authentic isn't about pressure or about trying to meet other people's expectations or be like other people. It's about kind of the Carl Jung's idea of individuation, of finding yourself as an individual and being more of that individual. That's what you're trying to express authentically, who you are.
Absolutely. I love that. Something that I've just noticed comes up every year, and I'm sure comes up when you're working with people, is this idea where people want feedback on their writing. And there will be like an open, like, I want feedback. And something that I know working with women in creating safe spaces that I have in the incubator every year is that what feels most important to me is women learning to stand in what they've written, and without approval from anyone, but to write it, read it out loud a number of times, and to stand in it before asking someone to critique it or give feedback on it. So I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about that from your perspective on this. Someone right away wanting feedback on what they've written.
Yeah. And, you know, my favorite way to give feedback, I think, is moving things around without adding a whole lot to it, you know, to maintain someone's voice.
Yeah.
because I don't see it as like right and wrong. You know, for instance, I have some clients who English is their second language, so the way that they put words together is different. But I think it's important to, I want to make sure that they're communicating maybe what they're trying to communicate. So if I can't understand, you know, I'll let them know. But I don't want to change their voice, because having a unique voice and being able to stand in it, like you said, is really important. And you're not trying to sound like everyone else. You're not trying to get an A in English class anymore, you know, and there is something really powerful about rereading your work. I don't think we do enough of that. I think there's a lot of this new mentality that people just want new stuff. Half of the time you could show them something you wrote before and they wouldn't even notice. And you can just build on what is good, you know. But to take, like, going, for instance, read through your journals, or read through, like you said, read something out loud that you've written. It's investing energy into yourself. It's investing energy into your relationship, and not offloading it into, I've got to make sure that everyone else approves of the way I'm expressing myself, you know. And I think it can be a little bit of a balance, because sometimes you get to a point where you can't move forward until you release it. Like sometimes I kind of on purpose will find a place to share something that's kind of raw, just to kind of process it and get to the next level. Like I might make a video about something and then I take the transcript and I use that to make a draft, you know. And then, or I might share something and then find, oh, people really liked that, so maybe I'll write another article about that. So you can do both, but especially in the beginning, like you're saying, like that is definitely the time when you're the most kind of fragile, and it's almost like you could be taught bad habits of always kind of relying on some outside guru to tell you that you're okay.
Yeah. And I love your example also of working with people who, I mean, if you think about it, we've all been raised in different parts of the world, even in the United States, different parts of the country have
Yeah.
different, different expressions and different things like that. And so to come up with I feel like we've advanced enough with authenticity to say that someone having a different cadence has just as much value as someone else, so that we can have that individuation and we can have that more diversity.
Especially if you're publishing now on your own, you know, if you're not going through the old channels of publishing, and publishing not just in books, but online. You know, you get to decide, do I want to use some slang here? You know, do I want to start my sentences with and or but? I mean, I know that's a rule people say you can't break, but I do it all the time because it's how I talk. And I recently have been conscious about how I might censor myself, because, like, you know, spending a lot of time in like Philly and Baltimore and growing up in communities where I've heard a lot of words that are not in like the traditional white vernacular. But like that's still how I think, you know. I think with certain words that maybe people aren't used to, like a white person saying, you know, not to the point of like appropriating something or acting like someone I'm not, but just like, I don't know, or even just spelling things wrong, like spelling the word GURL instead of GIRL, to emphasize the way I might say it in something. You know, I'm just sort of been deciding, you know what, I think that this expresses me, and it might create a little friction with someone reading it, like that's weird, or they might think that's weird. And that's okay. That's okay. Especially now, I say this all the time now, like with AI writing, the capabilities that people have to generate writing instantly with the computer, they are not using slang, and they're not, you know, making maybe some small grammatical mistakes or whatever. And that is a dead giveaway, that when you are using slang and maybe making a few mistakes here and there, like, you're not a robot. And I think that it's almost a badge of honor, and if it's not yet, it will be.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to turn our attention to your Heartfelt Writing Challenge and have you tell people about that. And I just want to say that I know for myself, one of the ways that I've used the challenge is to challenge my thinking and to sort some things out, which you had talked about, like
Yeah.
early things. So I just want to say that and tell us about the 21-day Heartfelt Writing Challenge.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I love helping people sort things out. I love helping people to have inspiration and to kind of answer their own questions, because I've learned that you can ask someone for advice, but until you come to it yourself, it's not really yours. It's not really yours. It's not really couldn't it maybe won't be right for you, but also you might not even hear it. Um, there's something about coming up with your own answers that's just probably the most powerful thing that can happen. So yeah, so I do these writing challenges. I've done them now. I think the first time was 2015 to do a writing group. And so it's like a free kind of pop-up event that happens. I took a break for a while, but now I'm thinking it's going to be like a couple times a year. And December 18th is the next one. So every day you get a writing prompt. And I've been told I'm really good at the prompts, just coming up with something kind of simple to jog you to reflect. And there might be a theme for the whole challenge. This one, the theme is reinvention. And I just get the image of kind of like snow. I don't know if I know you often spend a lot of time in California, but like when you experience snow, it kind of transforms a place to add this little white touch of white everywhere. It kind of reinvents it. It's the same fundamentally, but it's got the freshness. So that's what I'm talking about for reinvention. You don't have to like throw everything that works out the window and be a different person. But just adding a little bit of style, a little bit of something positive to things. And that's the point of the challenge, is that it's something you can start your day with and write something that is drawing your mind to a positive place, kind of starting the day off right. And then if you have other writing to do, then it will kind of prime the pump for you to unlock inspiration for your book or your business. But I really do encourage you. So it's not like the particular prompts aren't about like write a fiction story. This is for more nonfiction writing about your thoughts and feelings and desires and ideas, and even maybe reflecting on the past or thinking about the future, figuring stuff out in some. Yeah. And then we also have a Facebook group if you want to connect to people. And I do post the prompts on different places on social media. We've got Facebook, Instagram, and Threads right now. And then I have an email list to keep you informed with like the big announcements. You also get some resources like a digital tracker to keep track of when you're writing, so that you can use that to improve your daily writing habit if you want to have one. And yeah, and I have so much fun. It's really something I look forward to every time. Really enjoy it.
Thank you. Now I'm even more excited. The reinvention. I like that. And
Yeah. And it's called Heartfelt Writing Challenge because it's about tapping into your heart. And also, although you might have privacy with a lot of the things that you write, perhaps there'll be something that you want to share about the process or something you wrote with others. And this is going to be the kind of writing that you can help you make heartfelt connections with other people on this deeper level.
I love, and I just want to let the listeners know, look in the show page description here, because the link to join is there, as well as Sofia's website, so that if you're listening to this after the challenge, then you will be able to get updates from her about when the next one is. So I love it, doing it more than once a year, and always inspiring.
Thank you.
Just to wrap up, I wanted to ask you if you would tell everyone about the ways that you work with writers and how they can work with you.
Sure. And I also wanted to share one quote that came to mind that I forgot to mention, which is that heard a quote about love and how you need privacy to develop love, a loving relationship with someone, to have that intimacy. You need privacy to have intimacy, and that's how love forms. And so I think that we need to apply that also to ourselves and have some kind of disconnection from others to have that private space where you can love yourself more and have more intimacy with yourself. And so that's like one of the things that I really like to do, is create spaces where you can do that. So I've got a 6-month writing group where you can get together in a small group of select really cool people. I call them mermaids at heart, who want to write. And right now, the theme is always a little bit different, but most people who come in are entrepreneurs working on writing for their book or business, or writing about their life stories and experiences, and they want to share it with others to help people. And the theme for this one is paths of service, really helping you figure out, between all the things that you do, all the things you're juggling, what's the next way for you to be of service in a way that also meets your own needs and fills your own cup too. And the other thing I do is, in a few months, I'll be starting a digital organization membership to help you to organize your private writing, which really helps you to use your time well, especially if you stop and start or have a lot of things you juggle. That is currently free for everyone in the writing group, the 6-month writing group. It's all bundled together, but in the future, there'll be 2 separate programs. And then I also do individual coaching, one-on-one. And my favorite way to help people is my deep coaching package, which is 6 months. And we do weekly check-ins. We don't get on the phone, we do it virtually, but then you can submit writing to me, or you can just talk to me every week about your writing process, about your thoughts and feelings. And it's a private space, which is one person, one loving person, to be your cheerleader, to be a helpful guide, to help encourage you with different questions or positive reflections, to help you to explore your private writing, your stories, with the things you want to say, and maybe decide what is important to you and what do you want to share versus what are those extraneous details that you can just have in your own notebook. What goes online, what stays home, and if you have a business, how to connect all of that so that you can get those clients that absolutely adore you. So those are my favorite things to help people with. And then of course I have my free challenges and lots of articles and videos on YouTube and things like that.
Well, and there's all kind of links in the show description here so that you can click on those and go check out all the different ways that you have creative self-expression and sharing those ideas with others. So, Sofia, thank you so much for being here. I always love our conversations, and the thing about knowing you for so long is I can really feel the depth of how you've cultivated your writing, your approach to writing, your understanding of voices and putting things out into the world, as well as learning from this evolution of social media that, putting things out in the world, what is connection and all. And I know that you and I will have some additional conversations. We've talked about doing some more podcasts to have some more conversations about this. And just to wrap it up today, is there a thought you want to leave people with today?
What's just coming to my head is the thing that inspired me a lot, that kind of sat in the back of my head a long time, was I came across a digitization of George Orwell's journals and the cool little things he wrote day after day, year after year, and just seeing them so many years later. I mean, I don't know if he knew he was going to be famous, but maybe we should all act like we might be. And keep a cool journal that can get pulled out post-mortem.
Yeah, I mean, we're all famous to someone, right?
Yeah, we are. I do think some people, when maybe we'll talk about another conversation, but don't forget, you can always put a password on it. You can lock it up digitally these days, so you don't have to worry about that. But I also read a quote that said something like, people used to journal for their own private reflections, but no one does that anymore because we only write to get attention. And it spoke to me. And again, there's nothing wrong with writing to get attention, but we're missing out if we don't also honor our own attention and how powerful and precious that is too.
I love that. All right, we'll stop with that. And thanks everyone for listening, and come back for more, because there will be further conversations on this after.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.